okay, there are technical violations of stuff. We have one, we have several technical violations of the conflict statute. The problem gets into if we had people operating a real conflict of interest, that they were receiving or obtaining something of value through their, and hey, the public doesn't give a rat's rear.
But we're getting ready to break the law. Before we had a contract, where you consulted it, before we knew the contract was in place, did anyone with the county come to you and say, we have a Napa contract and we utilize that?
No, I never thought anything about it, because they were buying, they're the same as they were anywhere else, and playing market price and just playing whatever.
Mr. Chairman. may I?
Yes.
May I have the floor? First of all, let me say, gentlemen, Mr. Florence, Mr. Carter, I've understood, I've been in every one of these meetings. The mayor's been present. There's no doubt the law was violated. You understand that. Once you realize the law was violated, you stop doing business with them. That's understood. We got some bad information apparently from C-Test, so you went back to doing business. Once we found out that the auditor said, no, you can't do that, business was stopped. I don't want either one of you gentlemen to think there's anyone that really thinks you've done something illegal or wrong intentionally, because I certainly do not feel that way, sir. I think it's just a misunderstanding. It's a simple something that we can complete. And quite frankly, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward. We've beat this horse to a pulp.
We have a motion to move forward.
Which means table it, consider it closed. What would your, I agree, but I just don't know what we're moving forward.
I'd like to make a motion to table it this time.
Just to table it.
Table it this time. So we can move on to the other business, because we're not getting anywhere with this right now.
Okay, we have a motion to table the finding, discussion of the finding, or the complete finding and
The discussion of the finding.
the discussion of the finding at this time. And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. No. Nay. So, Sandy, how do you vote?
Nay.
Nay, how do you vote?
I think we need to get it resolved. So we can move
It's not
on.
going through.
What is that?
Nay.
All right, we have 2 yes, 3 nays, so the motion fails.
Okay, so now what are you gonna do?
Well, may I interject something, sir?
Yes.
Not very long after the mayor wrote this letter to the department heads in the county, including Mr. Carter, school superintendent, everybody else. One of the commissioners stood in open court and demanded to know about a purchase of an automobile by our sheriff. At that time, it's not the current sheriff, but the previous sheriff. In fact, that commissioner tried many times to gather records about it, because information was being leaked to him by an employee of Smith's Auto Service. Most certainly, that individual would have lost his job and would have been ruined in this county had his identity become known. What has happened as a result of that, with everybody trying to stonewall it, a car was bought in Germany for the sheriff. And it was brought here, and it was safe to be driven in the green zone of Baghdad. I don't think Benton County needs cars like that, gentlemen. But the paperwork that did surface and was shown showed that it was a $32,000 automobile instead of the $72,000 that had been claimed to the commissioner. That was a lack of transparency. And that commissioner went to you, Mr. Mayor, and asked you for those documents. And you told that commissioner, go to the sheriff and ask about it. Now, I don't want this audit committee
berated, denigrated, or put down because of what they're doing. If we'd had this audit committee here 5 years ago, we wouldn't be going through this today.
If you can find the facts on that $72,000 ticket, well, I'd like to see it too. Why don't you talk to the sheriff, current sheriff?
Well, thank you for your comments, and like I said, for the department heads, everybody that's involved, I want to be an a-hole, okay, to the point. I just want information because we have to take this to the commission. The commission is the people. And regardless of what all of us in this room think, we know. I know no one violated on purpose. It was more ignorance of the law than anything. And that happens all the time. But this committee and what we present to the commission in a written form, public record, the minutes for tonight, it's not for us in here. It's for any single individual in Benton County that wishes to know the truth behind this finding. So we have to ask questions that just make you uncomfortable, you know. And we say one thing, and the numbers can show a complete 180 of what we all say. Like, did we purposely break the law? No. But if a layman out in the middle of nowhere looked at the numbers, they're going to say, well, you sure got me fooled. Because look at all the violations. He doesn't know the books of Mr. Brandon. He doesn't know if Mr. Brandon's giving us a good deal or not. This is for the people of Benton County to have the trust in their government, trust in this committee, and transparency. This is all this is supposed to be. And when it originally came about, I'm telling you right now, I wanted to fight the state. And I was going completely off of the audit finding. The official audit finding said we had a contract that we went off of. We had recommendations. We have a letter that said we can do business. We've asked for the letter. To my knowledge, no letter exists. It might have been verbal conversation. We have no way to prove our case. Okay?
If you want to put any blame, that should be put on me. Because I got a verbal confirmation over the phone. My mistake was I didn't get it in writing, but it was a verbal conversation over the phone from a CTES person and passed on.
And I'm gonna note that. I mean, that's good. I mean, I know that he got. I know you got a verbal. But part of my due diligence also was you went to the wrong source because they don't handle contracts, and it'd be like me going to a paralegal for advice that only a lawyer can
CTES
advise.
has their own current attorneys. They have
Okay.
people that review everything that we do, and they're the ones that give a recommendation from their attorneys, not from their representatives.
Mr. Mayor, for the record, do you remember the CTES personnel that you spoke with?
Yeah, well, Rodney Carmichael was the one that passed the information on to my office that it was proper to.
Ms. Deborah, please note that in the minutes, ma'am.
And was that, did you seek CTAS's advice before you chose to say, we're gonna stand on the contract? Or did Buck come say, hey, we've got a NAPA contract? I mean, I would look at a NAPA contract and think, if I didn't know a lot about
Buck
it.
showed me the contract.
So we're operating on a contract, and then we go get the legal advice once we get our hands slapped. And the reason I mention this,
No.
we didn't.
No.
So you went before we started doing business.
That's all before we ever done anything.
Because keep in mind, before the contract ever took place.
I understand that.
And now I asked this question in the pointed way, because this is going to be part of the recommendation. Okay, if we're faced with this situation again, one of my recommendations is going to go be, let's ask the state procurement office who manages the contract. That, not CTAS, the state procurement office is the proper resource to turn to. Actually, an attorney with the state. They're the ones that respond to this question. They're also the ones that told me, you can use that contract all you want. Mr. Brandon isn't an authorized representative on top of the contract. He did not file to be a party of the contract.
I did.
A jobber's agreement?
I have my state number, sir.
Do you have a jobber's agreement?
I have a jobber's agreement, I have a state number. I can get you the contract to call. See, I was on.
I've already done that for you.
They brought that to me and asked me to give this to all county and city governments. That's all I did.
I would love to see that, because I asked them twice. I said, okay, now wait a minute. Y'all said this and this.
Believe it or not, the state makes mistakes too.
Really?
And again, that's why I followed up.
Dealt with them for 6 years.
And that's why I followed up. I asked them, I said, is motor parts and bearings on what you call the approved NAPA providers, resellers? They said no. So that didn't handle. I said, okay.
It's not anymore.
I'm
If you
on-
ask for motor parts and bearings, it's not anymore.
Okay, and I did. I'm glad you said that,
It's
because
not
I said, well,
anymore.
what
If you
about
ask for
NAPA
motor
of
parts and
Camden?
bearings, it's not anymore.
You're gonna need that information.
Now, I do
This
have my
next year.
state
I
number.
went back and asked them, NAPA of Camden. I said, does NAPA of
I don't know
Camden?
whether they've renewed.
And
the
you know what? They
contract or
said
not.
no and never have you been a part of the contract.
Well,
So,
we're gonna be audited again. and
so
that's-
again, all this tells me is what I can come to the commission with and say, okay, these are the steps. If we're faced with this situation, these are the steps we have to follow. It doesn't mean we made the mistake, but this, as a committee, we just can't come and tell the story. We have to come and say, this is how we don't do it again. And I would like to put in recommendations that have the right hand check the left hand, so that we have our checks and balances in place. We're gonna have the best conflict of interest action plan to avoid a conflict of interest in any county in Tennessee.
Mr. Chairman, would you ask Mr. Brandon for copies of those documents he was talking about?
And I did. I said, if you've got them, I would love to have copies, just for the record, say, hey, because,
I got it somewhere.
because in our mind, the county's operating, we thinking we're right. We have done our due, we said we checked this thing, we've done this and that, and again, we base it upon this information and not that information. It just helps us be able to prepare a summation for this report in the end. So, Mr. Brandon, if you've got those, I've already asked you for the sale. If you can get those, we would appreciate them. That we can put
I
them.
can get you in contact with a fellow that will tell you that I do have a state, that I did have a state number, and I was on the contract. And apparently you know more than I did, and I own the building, and I own the business, and I should know whether I have a state contract or not, and I did, and I have a state number. Apparently you're a lot smarter than I am. I should have had you.
Well, I
on
just
my
asked
list.
them. I just asked them about the terms of the contract,
I
because
don't care who you asked, but you got some wrong information. I know what I have.
Mr. Chairman,
Why else would I sell filters for 50% below my cost to Mr. Buck Carter here if I didn't have a state contract where I get some kind of rebate back?
well,
Mr. Chairman, there is two
I don't know
differences
where you
there.
got your information.
There is doing business with the state, and then there's a difference in state contract. I'm not sure which one you asked for.
the state contract that we can, a county can write off of a state contract. They do. It's like a discount coupon. For those of y'all that don't know what the state contract, it doesn't contractually obligate us to doing business. It just says, if we do business with Motor Parts and Bearings or NAPA of Camden, they have agreed to meet the terms of this state contract. It says discount coupon that lasts for 5 years, okay? We got in it, the state of Tennessee got in it 2 years after, so it's really only a 3-year contract. We can still utilize it till 2017, I believe. But it has to be based upon a parts list, a specific list. These are the parts. It's for light and heavy duty parts. But when you go buy wiper blades, is that a light duty part? You see, so people scrutinize this and they say, okay, if you're gonna hang your whole life on a contract and you don't even abide by the contract, I mean, you're buying items that's not on this contract. And again, because I asked for the data and I got it, I would say 90% of our purchases, maybe, I'll give you 80% of the purchases were non-contractual items.
Well, you're wrong when it comes to highway.
No, I'm not wrong.
Yes, you're wrong
I've got
when it comes to
the
highway
data.
department.
I've got the data, Mr. Brandon, and I've actually compared it to the price list, and you never hit the state contract except on one item.
I'm on the state contract on everything, sir. I don't.
Okay, well, I appreciate, I'm glad you're a lot smarter than I am.
I can tell you
And
one
so
thing.
it's, I've got the facts don't lie, you see.
Facts do lie. I don't know where you get your information, sir. And I'm
I-
gonna tell you one thing. I know what my business is. You don't know my business.
I know the contract and I know the purchases and I
No,
know
you
that
do
you're
not
in
know the
commission.
contract and you do not know the purposes. All this is political and that's all you care
I
about.
know.
I sold my business and I don't
You
care.
did.
Yes, sir.
But
It
this-
is done.
This
You
has
don't even have
nothing
the right
to do,
information
this
for
has
that.
nothing to do during that time. This has to, you've done your duty and it's good. Appreciate your comment. So now,
Going back to what you said earlier.
You got me at a disadvantage, sir.
I've just only got the facts.
You got me at a disadvantage.
I've got the facts.
You know what the disadvantage is? You can kiss my ass and I can't.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brandon, for participating in our meeting tonight.
Mr. Chairman, is there not some way we can move forward? sir?
Well, this is the last meeting on this, Committeeman Rogers, okay? That's why I don't want to table discussion and leave discussion out. So, just go.
I think, with all due respect, we're getting a little off track. I don't think it's the audit committee's responsibility to track money and who made money and all that stuff. Your job as an audit committee, in my eyes, is to help the departments. Your job is to help correct these findings and make recommendations on how these findings can be corrected. We're getting way off base here. We're going a direction we don't even need to go in. You're to help and recommend. Now, you know, that's the only authority really the audit committee has. I appreciate the audit committee. You've already helped and gave me some ideas already, things in this audit. I've made my response. Everybody's made their response. We know where we stand. I don't, like Mark said, I don't know what else we could say about this situation other than we was given misinformation and guided in the wrong direction. Everybody's apologized. You know, if you want to turn it in to whoever you need to turn it in, that's fine. But you just need to make your report on how we can correct this and how we can move forward.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor, that's exactly what we're doing, and since you see, you know, because right now, all we have is words, don't we? Right?
No, I gave you all kinds of information.
But words, sometimes you have to have facts to go with words. Now, I'm just gonna go by your words, that we received a letter, that we recently had an elected commissioner, and that we were not aware that it would be considered a violation. So I'm just basing it off the official report that this generated this thing from day one, that I went off of what was words. But sometimes you have to validate your words, else you lose the people's trust. Because anyone can lie. Well, you're not under any oath right now to tell the truth, okay? The only truth I had to present to the commission, because not everybody thinks alike. There may be the commissioners that want to know the truth and that want to know the facts. I have an obligation, and this committee has an obligation, to just present the facts, and that's all I want to do, because words can be deceiving.
What you need to do.
And that's exactly, and that's why I ask the questions I ask, and that's why I know the information that I say, all right?
Well,
So-
you were speculating about things that the community might think and all this stuff. You know, you can't control what people think. That doesn't have anything to do with this audit.
Well, let me tell you, it has to do with internal controls, okay? It's not just about the audit finding, and since you brought up the resolution that created us, one of our responsibilities is internal controls. And that has nothing to do with the findings. That's a whole other world. If we are not internal, part of my recommendations are to assure that you're doing your job, but if you don't, we've got catch B that says, hey, wait a minute, the mayor just missed it. It could be honest, but we've got a backup system in place to say, okay, if everybody didn't get the memo, this is what goes into place. And if that doesn't happen, we've got to check and see. That's why I ask the tough questions, so that I can present, as a committee, good recommendations that are solid, that are foolproof, that it won't break. Because when they break, we lose everybody's trust.
Every county in the state, every department has got to have internal controls in place by June 30th.
Mark Florence, his brother.
So I would suggest that audit committee members, I know that she went to
It's
the audit
Sandy.
committee. Sandy, Sandy went to the audit committee. And, you know, if you have to get with somebody that taught those classes or whatever, that would be a good thing for the audit committee to learn how we go about doing this internally.
We are. Well, I've already asked, we're gonna get with them. Well, we have talked, what he's talking about is CTAS gives classes to show basically how to put in an internal control system, okay? Part of these questions are based on, I wanna know the internal control system, because if I ask the wrong question, and I'm just asking you from the mayor's point of view, but I don't ask from Mr. Brandon's point of view, and I don't ask from the county attorney, and I don't ask from the commissioner, I don't, if I wanna make sure I got all the right pieces of play, so I know the timing and said, okay, we're gonna put in an internal control system for a conflict of interest. That's why we've done all this. Again, I didn't ask for it, but we're gonna do every finding with due diligence.
Each department is gonna have an internal control that's gonna be different from the other departments.
And will they comply?
No two internal controls will be the same.
And hopefully we will comply to that. Because the internal control system that we had
All
in
I'm
place,
saying is-
we didn't comply with.
All I'm saying is, when these internal controls are in place and adopted by the state and passed by the state, you guys need to get a copy of it, so you'll be familiar with what internal controls are for each department. That's all I'm telling you.
I mean,
I don't think that's gonna happen. What I think's gonna happen is they're gonna leave you where you are, and when you mess up, the penalty's gonna become no grants, no money. I'm sorry.
I agree to you to a point.
Well, I
But
think.
when you write.
No, I'm not arguing, I'm not trying to be conflictatory.
No.
I'm just telling you, I
I'm
think
not
we're
either. I'm
at
just
great,
telling
I think
you.
we're at great risk of having no money from the federal government, not one nickel, if we have this list of findings in 2 years.
If the internal controls, you put them on paper, you submit them to the state and they're passed, but if you don't follow by those internal controls, that's the problem.
And I agree with that, but I think there's certain things that are defined in law that you won't have the option of modifying. And if you stand up short, at the date you're talking about, I think the risk, I'm just saying, I think the risk is much higher than you stated.
That's why the state reviews, attorneys review all.
But I think they're gonna put it on us, they're gonna leave the county out to dry, because if we don't conform, they're not gonna stand there and say, we're gonna fix it, they're gonna leave us without the grants. I really believe that.
And to the.
And here,
yeah.
let me just put this in while I'm thinking about it, I'm sure it's gonna go, but when we're discussing this is how it hurts the county, in my opinion. To have a conflict of interest law such as this. Some of your best commissioners in every county are business people that run the businesses, industries around. Why in the world would they want to be a commissioner when they have to go through all this?
No, I agree,
You know,
but the law's the
they're not
law.
gonna run for office, they're not gonna jeopardize their business, that's their life.
Yeah, that's
So why
right,
should they do
but the
that?
law's the law.
I understand.
Jack that up.
But I don't.
One of the recommendations is gonna be an orientation. I mean, commissioners need to know this before they become a commissioner. They may not run, but if they do, you see, this is why I say, we still have to play the Joe Smith in the middle of the woods who studies this, because he sees favoritism. He may see this, and this comes down to an internal control recommendation. We're just simply gonna recommend, before they become, maybe an orientation process, hey, before you become this is what's involved.
Recommendations are what you're here for.
Exactly, but also internal controls, you know, and this is an internal control issue. We failed, no one knew what to do, how to do it in the proper ways. This is why we ask the questions we ask.
Mr.
So,
Chairman, where do we go from here, sir?
having said that, I feel like we've had a lot of good discussion. I mean, we want discussion, whether it be good or bad, contentious or not. This is how we learn. So, at At this point in time, I will open it up to general discussion if anyone's got anything they want to get off their chest. So we don't want anyone leaving here without having said something. So at this point in time, as I feel like the committee, we've said all we can say. I'll open it up to the general public for public discussion off this particular finding.
I don't address the commission on audit. I came up here just